Hello, YouTubers. The New Time Travel Jaime 88. I'm back with another Doctor Who DVD review, and today we're doing my personal pick Doctor Who. That's right, my Doctor Who personal pick. I pick 4 stories each to represent the show's 50th anniversary. So I'm doing each eras of the Doctor from the first 11 Doctors. So let's get started. The first one I'm picking from the William Hartnell era is An Unearthly Child. Yep, Unearthly Child is a very good story. The first ever adventure of the television series. And that's when the 2 school teachers discovered the Doctor has the TARDIS, and along with his granddaughter Susan, to journey into 100,000 BC. The Aztecs Special Edition. It's a good historical story, and I really love this episode. And it's great. Incidental music is great, and great director from John Crockett. Dalek Invasion of Earth is one of my favorite Hartnell story, and that's why I picked this story, because it sees the last departure of the Doctor's granddaughter Susan. And finally, The War Machines. It's one of my favorite episode of the Hartnell era, and it sees the Doctor's companion Ben and Polly. So that's it from his William Hartnell. Let's move on to Patrick Troughton. The Tomb of the Cybermen is one of my favorite Troughton stories, and that's when the second Doctor battles the Cybermen. It's great director from Mr. Morris Berry. This is a very story to be survived in its entirety. The Mind Robbers. This is another story that I personally pick, in which the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe had to go searching different fairy tales from Gulliver's Travel, so forth, at the battle with the brain master, the minds, in the mind of the professor. The Invasion. This is one of the Troughton stories that I personally pick, and it's a good 8-part story. I really love it. And finally, The War Games. Yep, this is the story. It's the final adventure in which the Doctor and his companions square off in the different time periods with the Warlord. And let's move on to the third Doctor era, Spearhead from Space. This is one of my third Doctor stories that I pick. This is a great episode in the battle, the third Doctor with his new assistant Liz Shaw and the Autons. The Ambassadors of Death. This is another Pertwee story that I personally picked this episode. It is fantastic. The colors restoration on this all 7 episodes, fantastic. Especially episodes 2 through 7. They're great. The Mind of Evil. Another Pertwee story that I personally pick. Is a fantastic story. And the colorization of all 6 episodes are amazing. And lastly, Planet of the Spiders. The final story of the Jon Pertwee era battles the great one of the big gigantic spiders. And now let's move on to the 4th Doctor era, Tom Baker. And I picked the story, Robot. This is one of my favorite personal picks of the story. And that's when the 4th Doctor and UNIT joined together to stop the big the professor creating an experimental gigantic robot. The Seeds of Doom, another one of my favorites, is the best Tom Baker story, and I love this. Shut Up. It's a classic story. This is one of my favorite Tom Baker stories, and Tom Baker's narration is fantastic. And Logopolis, the ending of the Tom Baker era generation from the 4th to the 5th Doctor. Let's move on to the Peter Davison era. And I personally picked this episode, Snake Dance. It's a great story of the 20th season, and I really love it. Margarine Undead, another personal pick when the Doctor meets the Brigadier again. And Turlough, excellent job to see the Black Guardian again. The Five Doctors, also my personal pick. It's one of my favorite multi-Doctor Who story, which all the Doctor has to stop the battle with the Barossa. And lastly, The Caves of Androzani. It's one of my favorite stories when the Doctor has to meet down with Androzani Minor, and he gets regenerated into the 6th Doctor. Let's move on to the 6th Doctor era. One of my personal picks is Attack of the Cybermen. This is a good story. The 6th Doctor battles the Cybermen and also stop Lighten. Now works with the evilness down. It's fantastic. The Two Doctors, also one of my favorite personal stories, and I truly love this episode. Fantastic. A Revelation of the Dalek, another Colin Baker stories, is the great Dalek episode, and very good story writing. It's one of my favorite. And also the Mysterious Planet of the Child of Time Lord. It's a good episode, and I really love it. And let's move on to the 7th Doctor era. I picked Time in Irani. It's a good story, and the first appearances of the 7th Doctor battles the evil Rani. Remembrance of the Dalek. It's never Sylvester McCoy story that I pick. It's one of the best stories of the 25th season. Battlefield. Another McCoy stories that I personally love. To see this is one of my favorite picks. And that's when reunite with Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. And The Curse of Fenric. It's a darn good story, and it's well directed by Nick Mallet. It's a great story. And that's it from the Sylvester McCoy era. And here's the only 8th Doctor story that I personal pick is the TV movie. This is a good story. Eric Roberts did a wonderful job as the Master, and Grace Holloway reminds me of Perry Brown, modern day Perry Brown. And I agree with Andre Grindle. Now let's move on to the 9th Doctor era. I personally picked Rose. Rose is one of my 9th Doctor favorite episodes that I personally pick this episode. It is well directed and a great start the way to reboot this series. Aliens in London and World War III. It's a great 2-part story. The scene with the Doctor's battle with the flatuous monster, the Slithins. Also, Bad Wolf and the Parting Ways. A great ending of the adventure to see the 11th Doctor battle through the Cybermen into the reality shows, including Big Brother, Weakest Link, so forth. The Bad Wolf Project. And let's move on to my personal pick for David Tennant will be School Reunion. It's one of my favorite David 10th Doctor story, and a chance to see Sarah Jane in person again. Voyage of the Damned, one of another my favorite 10th Doctor story, when the battle with the space Titanic, and nice to see the short-lived companion of Kyle Minogue. The Silence of the Library. It's a fantastic story, and to see the first ever appearances of River Song, that to see this girl who's having some hallucinations. Best story ever. And Journey's End. The last of the 4th series final. This is one of my favorite stories in which all companions get together to stop Daleks and Davros. It's a personal great story. Let's move on to the last one, the Matt Smith era. I personally picked this episode, The 11th Hour. It's a good story, and I love to see the first opening act from the 11th Doctor meeting with a younger Amelia Pond with fish fingers and custard. It's a good story. Amy's Choice. It's a great story, and the Doctor, Amy, and Rory dream about each event of what's going on in the near future, and brilliant episode. And also, The Snowman. Fantastic story. And I really love this episode, meeting with the new companion, Clara Oswald. Fantastic story. Good story writing. And also, the Pandoric Opens. It's a good 11 Doctor stories. Fantastic to see all Doctor's enemies come together in this big old cubicle box. Okay, and that's it for my Doctor Who's personal picks stories. Now, what is your favorite Doctor Who story that you pick from each 11 Doctors era? Comment down below and you'll get a shout out. This is the new Time Travel Jaime 88 saying, see you next time.